Well, first thing I would like to do is encourage you by saying, yes, you can do this. It's not as bad as it looks. And so today, my goal is to help you understand what's going on with this and to show you that really it looks like a lot, but not as much is going on as you think. Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be continuing my series on sound for streaming and soundboards. One of the biggest complaints and issues that I've seen from streamers and content creators alike with soundboards is they're confusing, or look at all those knobs and buttons. And I understand it can be overwhelming when you see all this stuff slapped down in front of you and you don't know what it means. So the easiest way to alleviate this issue is for you to learn what all this stuff is and how it all functions. Once we get in there and start to see what each little knob and section on this board is for, it's not going to be really as complicated as you think. So here we have one of the bigger boards that you could possibly have. This is actually the board that I'm using. There are a couple boards that have more stuff going on with them than this, but it's not by much. And I think if I can help you understand this big, daunting, complicated mess of knobs and buttons and faders and all kinds of stuff, you can pretty much approach all the smaller boards or any board in between that I have suggested in my previous video for your streamers and content creators to use. Looking at the board like this, it does seem like overwhelming, and I get that. So let's try to break this down and make things a little more simplified. First of all, in this video, we're going to just look at the mic inputs. So on this board, we can see we have 6 microphone inputs, and they're labeled here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's look at just this top section together. We don't really need to look at all 6 of these at once. As you can see, they're basically copied and pasted the same between all 6 channels. So to really simplify, let's really only look at this section right here. That's all we really need to understand. First, we have an XLR input. This is where you'd plug in a microphone. Next, we have a balanced or unbalanced 1/4 inch input. This is where you could plug in a guitar cable, instrument cable, and you can plug in a balanced signal, but it is not going to be a stereo balanced signal. It is going to be a mono balanced signal. You just need to know that all the mic channels on this board are mono. Next, we have a low cut button, and this low cut button will take anything below 75 hertz and just remove it from the mix. Now this is pretty aggressive. It removes it by 18 decibels. I don't typically like using this. If your microphone's picking up a really low rumble from something outside, an ambient noise in your room, then you could push this button to just get rid of that. And lastly, in this section, we have the gain knob. This little gain knob has a notch on it, and it goes from -10 to +40 dB, and you can see in white here we've also got a +10 and a +60 dB. All you really need to know is that this knob controls how loud your mic is. So this is the first step to loudness on your microphone. Changing the gain knob will produce more noise in your signal, but it will also give you the most dynamic range. So dialing this in is important. You want to reduce noise, but you also want to get a good amount of volume and dynamic range coming in through your microphone. Now we're going to move down to this next section here. This top section here is our compressor, and our compression knob equalizes the volume between loud and soft, which will allow you to speak louder and not peak too much, compressing the volume down and lifting anything that's really quiet up. Kind of tries to equalize it. And so this knob can be really helpful for making your microphone sound good, especially as a streamer. If you're moving around a lot and you're far away from the microphone, this compression tool is one of the best reasons to get a soundboard. This knob. If you were to get a good compressor outside of a soundboard, it could cost more than the soundboard itself. And this compression is fantastic. This next section is our EQ. And this is where we can change the volume of different frequency bands on the mic input. The EQ is labeled with high, mid, which is these two knobs on this board, and low. Basically what this does is it increases a volume of a frequency. So this is the high end at 12K hertz, which is pretty high, and you can cut or boost based upon this little 0 right here at the top of the knob. So going to the left, where you had a negative sign, is going to cut 12K hertz, or boost, which is just going to increase the volume or decrease the volume based upon where you turn this knob. And each one of these little notches is about 3 decibels of gain or reduction in gain on that frequency spectrum. For the most part, you don't ever really need to mess with these knobs. If you want to get just a slight adjustment on an input or a microphone or whatever you're routing through your board, this will allow you to do that. Not every board, though, has 2 knobs for the mid section like this one does. Now, if you only have 1 knob, then it's going to just act the same way as the high and the low, cutting and boosting on whatever frequency it says it cuts and boosts on. Whereas on some boards, like this one, you're going to have 2 knobs, and this second knob, you'll notice, has numbers 100, 250, 800, 1K7. These numbers going around this knob will allow you to actually choose a frequency that the top knob can adjust the gain on. So if you want to reduce 800 or reduce 1.7K, or you want to reduce 250, you could sweep around with the lower knob. You can subtract or boost the gain on that frequency. And the same thing holds true for the low knob. It's just at 80K hertz, which is slightly above that button at the top. It can be a good idea to pull out a little bit of the high and a little bit of the low, but not much. You want to just take the knob, if this is 0 and it's straight up like this, what you want to do is just kind of maybe slightly get it out of the little notch where the 0 is. Just lean it to the left a little bit for the high and for the low. The mid is kind of up to you. If you have a lot of white noise, this can be a good way to reduce it on whatever microphone you're using. This next section is where things get a tiny bit more complicated. What we need to do is look at another part of the board to understand what these knobs actually do. Let's look at the parts of the board that these knobs are actually tied to. On the other side of the board, there are some outputs, and that's this section right here, where it says aux sends and mon out. And you can see this is also labeled aux, and it says mon, and it says 1 and 2. And this says 1, 2, and monitor out right here. This knob controls this output. It's a physical output on the board that allows you to take your XLR, which is coming in through the top and going down the channel through the gain, the compression, the EQ, and then reaching this aux section, and it hits this first mon output. What this knob does is it captures the input and sends it to this output, this mon out, and you can solo just the microphone to a separate output. So this would be a good use case for, say, in-game voice chat or Discord. This way you can take your microphone and reroute it to a separate sound card. What you would do is you'd plug this monitor out into a mic input on your motherboard or line in input on your motherboard on your PC. This would allow you to use your microphone on your soundboard in Discord, but it would separate it from this final mix output where you might have people's Discord voice, game chat, music, your PC audio, all of that stuff is going to go into this final main mix. This little main button here, we'll talk about this in a second. But the final mix that's going to OBS, it has everything in it. So what you need to do if you want to use your microphone on Discord with your nice EQ and your compression, you need to send it out separately using something like the mon out, or even this one has 2 more outputs. The second one is the exact same thing, it's just a second one. So if you had a 2 computer setup, you could send, this could be the volume to one PC, and this could be the volume to PC 2. Could go here. And then you've also got this FX out, Now, some boards have an FX out and they don't have any aux outs, but it will act exactly the same. And it might have a microprocessor or an FX processing unit on the board to apply reverb and voice effects right on the board. If you plug a cable into the aux send that is labeled FX, it will bypass the built-in processing of the board. It should, at least, bypass the built-in processing on the board, and then this knob will act exactly like the other aux and mon send. It will just be a physical output. And so you can use the FX send to then capture your microphone and send it to another sound card for Discord and game voice chat and all that stuff. And you just control the volume of it with these knobs right here. And some boards will only have one aux send, some will have two, some will have more, some will have only an FX send. But they all work very similarly. So now let's look at this last section together. We've got a pan knob. This is to pan left and right. The knob will let you pan either towards the left, towards the right, or put it center, which would be straight up. This is really not as useful for a microphone, and you'd want to make sure it's always panned straight up for your stream. This is a mute button. It just mutes your microphone. This section is our fader. Now, what you need to know about the fader, some boards have two mix outputs. A main mix, which is what would come out of the USB port on the soundboard, which is what you would set up to be connected to OBS. So effectively, this button sends whatever's coming down this channel to OBS or the USB. That's what the main button does. It's an assignment. If you disengage the main channel by pushing the button and popping it up, you're going to end up with nothing. No matter what you do to this fader, you will not hear it on the USB output or the main output. If you push the sub button, there is a secondary output on the other side of the board with physical left and right outputs that you can send to, say, speakers. And maybe you'd want to have music from your soundboard going to a set of speakers, but not your voice, not your microphone. So you'd not push this button because you don't want to send your XLR microphone to the submix where your speakers are plugged in. But you do want to send it to the main mix for OBS, for recording purposes in the final mix. So everything on these channels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, for the microphones, this whole thing is about assignment. Not every soundboard has a submix, and it will not have these buttons. You may not see these buttons at all on your board. You may only see a solo button. And that button just allows you to check a single channel. It solos that channel, so that's the only thing that you hear. It effectively mutes everything else in the board but the one channel that you're soloing. So you just use that for troubleshooting. If you're having noise and you're trying to figure out what channel it's on, you can push the solo button, try to figure out, oh, okay, it's coming from this channel. Lastly, the thing that you need to know is this little 0 right here. This is called unity. And this is where you want your microphone to live. Your voice should always be the loudest thing that the soundboard produces. This 0 should represent your max volume for your stream, because your voice should always be the loudest thing, unless you're turning it down for some other reason. But for the most part, you want your microphone to live on this little 0 always and forever. Unity. You don't want to go above unity. You're going to start to get noise if you go up here. And if you don't want to go below unity, your microphone should live, absolutely live at unity. And everything else should be mixed to ear, what you're hearing, so that it sounds good to you below unity. Or at unity if it's right for whatever it is. Maybe you're on a BRB screen and it's music and you want the music to be loud. So don't go above unity, live at unity, especially for your microphone. If you need to adjust the volume of your microphone, you want to go back to the top of the channel and adjust it at the gain. The gain is where you want to adjust the volume of your microphone. And that's where we're going to stop today. If you can follow this and learn just what I taught in this video, you're going to be in a really good position for the rest of the soundboard, because it's just the same thing over and over and over and over again, with slight changes on what is available on each channel and slight changes on what you can do input wise. And that's basically it. So hopefully this helps everybody understand that it doesn't have to be that complicated. For the most part, you're just going to be a set it and forget it type situation. That's how you really want to run a soundboard. You only want to make slight adjustments. Somebody comes into Discord, they're a little bit loud, you can reach over and just kind of eke it down a little bit. Maybe their microphone has a lot of low end, so you pull the low knob down on the EQ on that channel. But other than that, it's set it and forget it. You're not going to be over here adjusting your mic the whole time you're live. You're not going to be messing with the main mix faders. You're not going to be messing with a bunch of stuff. You don't have to. Really, it's just about somebody's rating you, turn your alerts up. Whoop, alerts go up. Music, you want to talk to the chat for a minute and don't want the music there, boom, pull the music out. It's that simple, and I want everybody to see how powerful this is. Plus, the value of that compression on this board it's really, really worth it. Hope this helped. If you guys have any questions about soundboards, if you want to know what soundboard to buy, I have a video I just did on that last week. Leave a comment below, like if you like this video, dislike if you don't like it, and I'll see you next week.